All right, so James, in your experience at three different FCS programs, how varied was the bye week routine? Did it matter year to year, or was it similar across programs?
So the three different experiences I had, well, technically it was basically four because with Delaware had two different head coaches, Indiana State one head coach, and then Howard one head coach during our bye week, which happened to be our dad.
Right.
Dad was nice enough. I think the Thursday practice afterwards, we were free to go. I think we had like maybe a early Friday lift, but I remember that weekend I went back to Stepanak, took the Amtrak from Union Station at Howard all the way up to White Plains or New Rochelle. Went to, I think Stepanak was playing like a Friday night game or whatever, but was able to make that and was able to hang out all the way. I think we had like our check-in was Sunday at 5 p.m.
I,
So it
I
was nice.
remember here. I remember
Yeah.
seeing your post at Stepanak. That's right.
That was nice because the cool thing, oh, it was a Saturday because I remember it was like a 5 o'clock-ish game or 4 o'clock-ish game, and it was Stepanak was playing Hayes, and so shout out, a Johnny, Joey Carino, Kevin McKenna, Jane Jenkins, all the guys from our years younger who were on that team at that time,
Right.
and they were playing Hayes, and Stepanak won on a last-second field goal. And I think it was our guy Edna Kirby, I believe is his name. I believe
Yes,
it was
I think
him
it was Edna because Edna went
who's
to Stony Brook.
because now he's the kicker at Stony Brook. So he drilled it.
Yes.
Everybody was going crazy. That was a fun game. COVID, it was funny because obviously we did not have a fall season, so that kind of pushed everything back. And then when we went into the spring season, we impromptu had two extra bye weeks because we were going to play Albany the first or second week of the year. And then the Wednesday of practice, after we already had two hard practices, we find out Wednesday meetings at Albany canceled because they,
Oh
had
my.
too many players had COVID. They were worried about the safety, all that stuff. And then the same process happened with who was the other team that New Hampshire. That was the other.
Yeah.
So Albany, New Hampshire gave us two bye weeks. I don't think we went anywhere. I think Coach Rocco, shout out him at VMI now, but I think he actually made us practice on Saturday, and people were not too pleased with that.
Boo,
Had
Boo VMI, but yay, Coach Rocco.
Rocco. Yeah. So Coach Rocco, excellent coach. He's very old school. So, he was like, listen, like, we're gonna get through this. We're gonna simulate this as if it was game week. So even though we had no opponent, we still had go through Scout D, Scout O, uh, walkthroughs on Friday. We
Yep.
did the whole had a scrimmage on Saturday, and then. But I think the good thing with that was at like 9 a.m. So then you had the rest of the Saturday off.
Okay.
But which during COVID time, it was nice just because we were the only people on campus and we were all kind of just hanging out with each other. And then Coach Cardi at Delaware my senior year had, I think, same thing with dad, Friday and Saturday off. So I went back to Stepanak for a game there. I was actually able to give Coach OD and our school one of the older jerseys models that we had, and give them to put that up on the wall that weekend. So that was really fun.
Yeah.
And Indiana State, God, even though it's been 2 years ago, it's just been like a blur. We
And it's
played
the most recent, which is
most
funny.
recent, and I just forget that one, but like Eastern, then we played IU, and then we played Ball State, and then I think we had a bye. Don't think I went anywhere. I think we kind of just stayed at the house because we just went through a gauntlet with those three teams, and we were just like, okay, now we have to go through through Missouri Valley play, and we were just like, okay, we
Right.
just need to decompress for a hard second. But tell us, Deuce, what was your bye week experience like?
So, for reference, the two of us, we went to high school at Archbishop Stepinac High School in White Plains, New York. Go Crusaders. James was typically in the Northeast Corridor until he went to Indiana State with his freshman year at Howard and his undergrad career at Delaware. That's fairly close. You can catch a train in Charleston, in Charleston, South Carolina. That was not necessarily an option. Plus, the military school part, having played at the Citadel, there was no, hey, I'm just gonna go up to New York real quick on a whim.
If you can't just go AWOL on a weekend to, 7 states away and not tell anybody and just be like, hey, I'm just gonna get up out of here. You'd be the Citadel's version of court-martialed for that.
Yes, I would have not had a free weekend. If I did it my freshman year, I would not have had a free weekend until maybe the night before graduation.
Okay, so just tell. explain to the audience then, for the Citadel general population and which the athletes are subject to a lot of the same rules and almost all of the same rules that everybody else at the Citadel goes through. Explain weekend passes and some of this. Maybe some people heard about it through West Point or Annapolis or Colorado or Air Force, but what was that like at the Citadel?
So imagine your work PTO policy, like you have a bank of time off,
Accrued PCO, yeah.
and it's also based on your performance and if you shined your shoes well enough, not necessarily, hey, this is yours with your job, use it how you see fit and just communicate.
Right.
We had to, if you had punishments, if you say missed a class or if your uniform wasn't up to standard, you couldn't use those times and you had to either do, if it was a minor offense, basically detention, or you had to get up in the full military garb and march with a rifle for an hour to work those punishments off. And at the Citadel, the only available nights you could spend off campus would have been Friday night and Saturday night, and Wednesday if you had above a 3.0 GPA.
Hmm.
And that Wednesday was just to leave campus in the evening. You still had to be back for bed
To come
check.
back. Yeah.
So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we had nightly bed checks. And so what ended up happening is like you had a reserve essentially that you could use over time. And so it wasn't necessarily a situation where you'd be like, I'm just going to go up real quick and come back. And at the Citadel, the bye weeks were consistent. I'll say that. I played under the same coach for all 4 years in college. Shout out Coach Thompson, great triple option coach. And, playing triple option football, the bye weeks were not necessarily a week off. It was, the last thing you want a triple option team to be is not physical.
Hmm.
And, someone who had to work their way up from the last chair up to the second chair, like in the first chair, like that was basically being reinserted back into camp mode.
Hmm.
And it was and unless you were injured and they were trying to work you back in, the bye weeks for us were very much a full week of practice. It was full pads Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe helmets and shoulder pads on Friday, and then a full practice on Saturday with the toilet bowl on top. James, I don't know if you guys ever had a
No,
toilet bowl.
no, but to your point about physicality and having hard practice through the bye weeks, it kind of propped me up a different way of the one thing, especially during season, you never wanted to be was hurt because that meant during practice you had to be a part of what many people would know as Muscle Beach.
Yep.
And oftentimes, Muscle Beach would be harder than the practices themselves. And, thankfully, I think I maybe missed one practice in my whole college career because I had to do an MRI like halfway through or whatever, but for my knee. But I would look over at, like a couple times at Delaware, at Indiana State, and you just have guys, especially if it's just like, I got a shoulder or
Yep.
my wrist hurts. You're doing stadiums, you're doing butterfly leg lifts, you're doing, mountain climbers, you're doing whatever. And then if you're, if you have a lower leg injury, you're doing arms, you're doing bands,
Hmm.
you're getting the whole thing worked up. So you would look over there and you're like, whew, I'm glad I have to go through the chutes and do that, 20 times
Yeah.
versus doing that.
The way Muscle Beach sounds, it probably to the average person sounds like, oh, it's just like we're working heavy arms, but there really was no way
No.
out because if you had a leg injury, say you were coming back from some kind of leg injury, they would work your arms. But say
Yeah.
you had a torn labrum, you can do butterfly kicks with a
Yep.
torn
You
labrum.
you can do sprints around you can do sprints around the two practice fields at Delaware. They would have the guys we had two practice fields and then we had the O-line drill field and Muscle Beach would be on the drill next to the drill field near the O-line station and then they would have guys run around the two practice fields all the way around basically all the way to like team or whatever. And then of course like during the beginning summer, in like August September practices those they have the old rusty metal weights outside and it's been 90 degrees and those guys are grabbing a 45-pound plate and their arms are just like sizzling and they're
Yeah.
trying to do these front raises where they have to like hold a 45 plate over their head or whatever and it just looked like absolute torture. So I'm glad I never had to experience
Yeah.
anything like that, especially during a bye week when you're thinking, okay, it's going to be a little bit more relaxed.
Right. And like the toilet bowl for us was like, hey, we have a chance that we don't typically get in season, which means the second, third, fourth string is going to get as many game reps as possible in
Okay.
a good on good situational sense. Like
Yeah.
we're going to do tempo, we're going to do 2 minute drill, we're going to do inside run, but with
Goal line.
nothing but
Yeah.
those guys.
Yeah. Goal
And
line situations, all that stuff. Yeah.
and it was a situation where it was kind of like haha toilet bowl, but at the same time, we had a lot of dudes that ended up moving up the depth chart because they made an exceptional play in the
Those may
scout
be
bowl.
those may be like your only reps in season for the rest of the year. Like if
Right.
you're especially like a freshman or like a sophomore and you're just stuck behind that depth chart, like those moments, like I remember we would watch like so I now when you now you're explaining it like we never called it toilet bowl, but like we would do that. We would have those moments. And for the guys who were, on the fringe of travel team or on travel team, whatever, like watching the younger guys do that was always you would like the energy in practice would lift up because you want to see those guys do well, even if they're in the same position as you, just because
Yeah.
it's more of like a team morale thing. Like, hey, I know that if I go down or if this guy goes down, the guy behind me, he can step up and he can, execute on the assignments.
Right. As someone that redshirted my freshman year, James had a much more prolific college football career than I did. He had an opportunity to play basically from jump. As someone who redshirted my freshman year, like that was during the season the most film I had.
Hmm.
And when you come back on Sunday, at least at the Citadel, we came back on Sunday and watched film. That was the most attention you would get in film. And so, it's that mix of any film study where you're like, man, I hope I didn't like mess up on a mental
Yeah.
error or miss a block. And B, like, this is a chance where if I do something good, it can help my case.
Yeah, because like you go through practice, and if you're on the scout teams, you sit in those meetings with the GAs or whoever's running the scout team, and you watch the film of either the other team or what you guys did the week before. But it's mainly calls out to see who messed up and who didn't run the plays. It's not when you're doing the self scout, when you're doing the scout for the other team, your coaches aren't watching it with you saying, "Hey, good job on." If especially for triple option, hey, good job on those 8 pass sets that you guys did in the
I
game
was I was just about
to
to say,
simulate like like you're playing Sanford and you're doing the whole week is doing pass sets. Coach is not gonna be like, hey, Deuce, good job on those 8 drop back sets on those 3-man rushes. Really good look.
it really was different because when you're running a spread offense or you're running a one back scheme, there are only so many ways an offensive coordinator can cook up zone read.
Yeah.
But, for us at the Citadel running flexbone triple option, on scout team, you're running all those pass sets, you're running zone read, and then all of a sudden you come back into the scout bowl and you're running all of your base triple option schemes, which are so different because, the stance might even be different. For
Mhm.
Samford, like you alluded to, or VMI when Reese Udinsky was there, uh, all their linemen were in 2 point stances.
Yeah.
And then you get back in the triple scheme and you're back in a three, sometimes even 4 point stance.
Yeah.
It's different from your day to day. And I mean, for us, obviously, it had to be very physical. We were an undersized team for the most part, being a military school, and we had to run that scheme such as it was. And it's very, very interesting coming from this perspective going into this bye week that the University of Virginia has
Yeah. I think
because
I was just about to say, like, I think for people that don't know, like, because the difference with like a Citadel or Delaware when they were FCS is that, and I kind of alluded to this when I was at Indiana, talking about Indiana State, like your first 3 or 4 games are almost always non-conference, and they're usually you're playing a bigger school and you're traveling away.
yeah.
Then most FCS conferences have a bye week before you get into conference play.
Yep.
You know, Power Five schools, it's a little bit different because the schedules can be so wacky with the non-conferences and things like that. So Virginia having a bye week now, which is now it's week 7, is massive rather than having it in like week 10 or like week 2 or week 1.
Right. You'd rather have if the offensive line wasn't so banged up for the University of Virginia, I'd rather they'd just schedule someone
Right.
like I'd rather them play Fork Union this week because the team is so hot, the team is playing so well that, for example, a team like the Philadelphia Phillies right now in the NLDS, they got a couple games off and they're getting shellacked by the Dodgers. I mean, we see this in the playoffs all the time in every sport. Sometimes that first round bye or a bye week, that week off can sometimes hurt a team more than it helps a team.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And, the offensive line for the past 2 weeks has been kind of in a state of flux and somehow came out with two awesome wins against very, very talented opponents, like we were talking about, especially in the Louisville preview. And man, that offensive line in that Louisville game was held together by duct tape and sheer grit.
It was interesting watching the game and just I think we kind of talked about just how this wasn't going to be a battle of terms of like, is Jeff Brom or Tony Elliott going to be, out scheming each other like a game of chess? This literally was going to be rock'em sock'em, like who's going to get the last punch in?
Yes.
And it's, you were posting some of the clips just about like the physicality, especially on the Virginia D line and like some of these great plays that people are making. And then you have like, Chandler Morris like on the second to last play in overtime, throwing his whole body on the line, and it just showed like, obviously in normal situations, you would be like, Chandler, just go out of bounds or just take slide down. But like this game, it clearly showed for both teams like how much both teams are led by their physicality and their
Yes.
toughness on both sides.
And thankfully, this bye week came right after Chandler threw himself into the meat grinder.
Yeah,
But as much as you might watch that and cringe, or if you're especially the coach and you might be like, oh my God, as a player, watching a quarterback with that
you
much
love that.
intensity,
Yeah.
yeah, like, I mean, you and I have played for two quarterbacks that are very much like that. For the Citadel, it was our quarterback, Brandon Rainey. I mean, Brandon was not afraid. I mean, that triple option offense means that you're getting tackled just about every single play at quarterback.
Oh yeah.
And he had no fear, no compunction about going straight in and being a physical leader on the team at the quarterback position. And for you, I would highlight at Delaware Nolan Henderson, who
Absolutely.
was just a absolute gamer and a quarterback that I think if you didn't watch FCS football while he was balling out at Delaware, you really should watch him.
He it's so funny like the obviously it's not that removed, but like the style of play that he had and just in terms of, 6'1", we would always joke, for his weigh-ins, he'd be around 180 to like 185 during the season. And it's like, dude, like we're playing quarterback and we have Jared Verse next week. Or
Right.
like, we have, Brent McDonald from JMU. Like these guys are physical dudes. Like we got to make sure you're staying up with the weight. But like for him, it didn't matter what weight he was. Like Nolan was one of the toughest players I've ever played with, and just the fact that he never was afraid to throw his body in there, never was afraid to make the tough throws, even when he knew he was getting hit. And like I called back like during COVID, like we were playing Jacksonville State,
Yep.
and he's scrolling down, rolling to the right, and right as he gets to the sideline, he kind of pulls up, kind of slows down. Dude just absolutely clocks him. We get a 15-yard penalty, but he pops right up. And
Hmm.
then like me and of course all the other linemen, we're running in there, and we were getting in that guy's getting in the grill, but like we knew that Nolan was going to be okay, and
Yeah.
we just knew the toughness, and we knew that we had his back, he had our back, and you love playing for a quarterback, especially from the offensive line position.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's that Jim McMahon effect, for lack of a better word. I mean, you saw it when Chandler Morris ran out on the field, fresh
Yeah.
off of having his bell rung,
Yeah.
and
He's like,
probably
let's finish this. Like, he's like, let's go. Like, he's like getting the guys going.
he's fresh off of probably having two ammonia tablets cracked and shoved up his nose.
Yeah. But like, and I was just about to make that point. But like, Brandon Rainey and Nolan, like, obviously Braden didn't get to throw the ball as much, but like, those are two guys that now you see in college football so much.
Yeah.
You're not seeing very often, a 6'6", 250, 240 quarterback who's just sitting in the pocket. You have guys who have to, be able to read defenses, read the defensive end on those key RPO runs, and be able to move and, oftentimes have to take those hits. And so
Yes.
like those guys like Nolan and Rainer are obviously prototypes of what you see now, especially in someone like Chandler Morris, who, their games are very similar in the way that they play.
And it's this bye week will be great because obviously Chandler is kind of a super senior at this point. This bye week will probably be great because he gets a chance to rest up, and Virginia will get extended reps with Kalen, the Nebraska transfer, who notably on this chart right here is the Q that runs all the way out.
Yeah, that
And
incredible handoff. He comes in there like all the pressure's on the world on him to just, and I think you you literally called it at the end there of like, hey, we got to get the running back the ball like in those situations, and they do the same thing. But props on him for going in there the whole game cold and just taking that snap, reading the defense perfectly, and just trusting his running back to make that play.
well, it's funny because he didn't take the snap. It was actually a
Or
direct
it was,
snap
I'm
to.
sorry, like that's right. It was the direct snap. That's right. Excuse me. It was the direct snap, but the fact that like he's able just to control everything and not panic and just be able to be in that flow state. It's good to see, although it was one play, it's good to see that from your backup quarterback coming in and just make sure everything's cool.
Right, because I mean, they're like that's a play that looks simpler than it is because, with your starter who's probably repped that play a couple times, that's fine. But I mean, you have a guy coming in fresh cold, God forbid, an illegal procedure. He lines up in
Right.
the wrong spot. Like
He
he
tries to
this,
like grab the ball from the running back,
yeah.
like anything could he may think it was like a bad snap or whatever. Like, yeah, like exactly. Like it's you never know, especially in those moments, like when your time is up and when you have to go.
Right, and it's a great opportunity because in the limited action we've seen Kalen in, I really do like what we see. Like I don't put a lot of stock in the fact that he had to leave Nebraska. I mean, Dylan Raiola looks like he's going to be a legit quarterback for Matt Rule over there in Nebraska, and so it seems like
Hmm.
we just had an opportunity to elevate someone for quicker playing time,
Yeah,
and it is someone who, the both of us, got a chance to meet Dylan's dad at various points through the
yeah,
Lions. Like that's a football family. They know what they're doing over there with the Rayolas. So I'm glad Kalen got a chance to be a part of that awesome play. I mean, even if you don't touch the ball on the offensive line, those are the plays that you just remember. I mean,
yeah.
shoot, Ben York came in the third quarter, I believe. He was the third string left tackle, I believe, at the beginning of this year.
Crazy.
And you ask him to block Lubin and
Yeah.
actually and kept Morris off the ground for the most part.
And my God, I think the funniest thing on flipping to the other side has been watching the reaction of the Louisville fans, who props to them. They came out on the 4-through-3 videos on TikTok and
Yes.
were showing out. And they were defending their team with honor and all that stuff. But the hilarity of watching them react, and basically all these clips are it's Miller Moss, and then cut it to Will Levis.
Yeah.
It's just like him making all these insane throws, the interceptions, and you're just like the breaks that you get like that in college football is why the game is so fun and
Hmm.
why like you never know what's going to happen. But like having a quarterback where you're not going to be too stressed about moments like that is make or break in the game today.
It was a great game. It was really hotly played. I think Jeff Brom asked a little bit much of a quarterback who doesn't go under center at various
Yeah,
points in the game.
yeah,
Obviously, the botched pitch I think was a really big moment that I think could have been avoided on fourth and short. I don't know what other play call they could have come up with, but I don't think that was the right one.
yeah,
And, a quarterback with Miller's experience should know not to throw the ball when he's in the middle of getting sacked and trying to Mahomie it.
yeah. That was incredible. I couldn't believe it.
And but just overall an outstanding win. I mean, two different ways of winning. Obviously, Florida State offensive line dominant, able to run the ball basically at will when we needed to, whereas this one, the defense truly
Coming
carried
up
the
big.
water.
Coming up big, getting those stops, especially when Louisville was in bad field position, taking advantage of those opportunities to get the ball back to the offense was huge.
It was incredible. And so Virginia heads into this week, and it's a great weekend to not play because there are a lot of chances for weird things to happen across the country. Obviously, in the bigger national picture, a great game, Illinois, or oh my goodness, Indiana, Oregon, uh,
Huge.
in Autzen. That'll be an incredible matchup. and then got some great games just across the conference. This is a great year to not have Miami and Georgia Tech on the schedule, so we'll just kind
Yep.
of sit back and watch how everything turns out there.
Oh,
And
I,
then,
I'm really excited for that Oregon Indiana game just because to see Signetti and Dan Lanning face off. Obviously they didn't get a chance to play each other last year, but they had obviously so many shared opponents just from being in the same conference, and
mhm,
it'll be exciting to see. Like, I think a lot of people talk about how good Frank Mendoza is, which he is, and that offense and the running game that they have, but the IU defense has been outstanding, especially that D line. So it'll be really interesting to see the Indiana defense versus that Oregon offense. And then the other game I think will be Missouri, Alabama, going into Columbus, Missouri. Shout out my guy Keegan Tross from Indiana State. He's
mhm.
their current right tackle. He's actually won PFF offensive lineman for the week for I believe for the SEC 2 weeks now, or he's been balling out there, making sure that letting people know that hey, the guys in the FCS when they get those opportunities to transfer up or make those plays, they can hang with the best of them. So those are really two games I'm really excited to go watch.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's some FCS game. This might be a really exciting FCS week more than anything. Got Indiana State playing a very good South Dakota team. Obviously, my two brothers, James and our other brother John, playing that game against South Dakota. My Citadel Bulldogs against a very competitive Division II Valdosta State team. They're always a very, very quality opponent. And then Delaware in a rematch of a former FCS playoff game, Delaware versus Jacksonville State.
Two
James, tell me about Delaware Jacksonville State.
two teams that I think when we first met up, I believe it was the first time Delaware and Jacksonville State had ever played. But if you had asked us in 2021 or yes, 2021 when we played that, hey, in 5 years, 4 years, you guys are both gonna be playing in the same conference together, we've been like, you out of your mind? Like, there's no way. This was Jacksonville State at this time, I believe, had Rich Rod as their coach. They had a lot of really
Yes.
good SEC transfers that we had to compete against. They were a really good, talented team that when we played in there. Um, I think it's fun because Delaware, since moving up, there was a lot of questions about, how would they handle going from being a bigger fish in the smaller pond, not to discredit anything with the FCS, but like, obviously Delaware
Yeah.
being one of the biggest schools, they
It's a
have more
historic brand. It's
historic program,
yeah.
some of the biggest athletic budgets, bigger than most Group of Five schools, being obviously the flagship state school. Um, how would they do it in Group of Five? And it seems that they fully embraced being a part of it. And I think it's been really cool. Like I'm sure a lot of people on Friday night last week were watching them play Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is an incredible team. Highly recommend it if you are into the Conference USA. If you're into Group of Five, watch Western Kentucky in the upcoming weeks. Or they're certainly be a team to
Great
watch.
coaches, great
Yeah.
quarterbacks coming out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. I mean, an outstanding program. Obviously, started with Jack Harbaugh
Yeah.
all the way back in the day
And
before the Harbaughs were a Michigan family. They were at Western Kentucky.
and so now you have Delaware, who's playing on last week on a Friday night, has the highest attendance since they've done all the renovations since COVID. I think it was like almost 20,000 people at the stadium. We were even when we were at the top of our time at Delaware, I think the highest we ever got to 17 or maybe 16,000 people. So it's
Yeah.
really cool to see the school, the fans, the people really embrace being a part of that. Obviously, being on national television every week and being away from Flow Sports, aka the worst streaming network of sports, the killer of all athletic programs. Now
As
that we're off of that, I can now tell people, hey, go watch Delaware without paying $40 a month to watch them.
obviously
It's
you
nice to
were on
see.
the field playing, but
Right.
as someone who wanted to watch you play,
Couldn't do it.
Flow Sports felt like I was in a Saw movie.
Yeah.
Your
Like it was
objective is to watch this
yeah.
Delaware New Hampshire game.
Right. And it's great now that we're on CBS, you're on ESPN, we're on all these different networks and we're able to do that and have that brand um, exposure all across the country. I had three people at work from Indiana ask me, on Monday last week, hey, I was watching the Delaware game on Friday. I would have never had that conversation if we were still in Flow Sports and still in the CAA. So,
Yeah.
although a lot of people, the traditionalists of Delaware would probably like to stay FCS, or some people probably would have wanted to stay D2 back in the day and still play Westchester every year.
Yeah.
Um, obviously the evolution of the game is growing, and I'm glad that they're doing it, and I'm glad that they're having rematches with teams that we are familiar with, Jacksonville State, and then obviously we played UConn earlier this year.
That was a great game.
Great game. Nick Minicucci, the guy has stepped up for Zach Marker, who both of them are really good quarterbacks. Zach has had unfortunately dealt with a lot of injuries in his career, but Nick has stepped up, and the guys believe him. I was able to go to the Colorado game earlier this year, and just to see the guys be around him and support him is really exciting and really encouraging to see. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for the Jacksonville State game. They play next Wednesday, so they have a little bit of time off from Friday all the way. It's almost they're treating this like a bye week. I'm sure they're going to start, game week tomorrow or maybe even today, and they
Yeah.
have like 3 days off or whatever. But it's cool seeing part of the group of five action. You're having all these unique moments, and you're not just buried in the 1 o'clock time slot on Saturday. You have these moments where you can step into the national limelight and get that exposure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and Delaware was an awesome place to watch football games. I got a chance a couple times to go out and see you play there. I mean, if by all means, if you live nearby an FCS team and your FBS team, hopefully the Virginia Cavaliers is away or on a bye week, go check out your local FCS team. Ton of fun. We both played at that level. It's 15,000 people, but they really care about the football. It's some of the most knowledgeable fan bases in America, whether it's Richmond or William and Mary, if you're in Virginia or VMI even, or if you're in South Carolina, I'm biased, the Citadel or Wofford or God forbid Furman, but like awesome
Or
environments.
God forbid Charleston Southern. Unfortunately, if you have to make that trip.
Man, if you got to make the hour drive from Charleston to Charleston Southern,
Southern, not Charleston and not Southern, all that.
Ladson Baptist, as I
Yeah.
call them. But I mean, it's a fun week of football. It's nice to be able to kick back and know that we don't have another overtime game to stress about.
Yeah.
And, bye weeks are such an interesting point in time for football teams. It's a chance to recharge and you have that rest versus rust debate. And the way that this team has talked about big games like Florida State and Louisville, I think they have the right mentality to proceed through this bye week and not overlook the remaining part of the schedule. I mean, Wazoo is always a funny team to play. They're always going to be competitive. Obviously, Duke is a very solid team right now, but UNC would love a we're back game against Virginia.
Massive.
Obviously, Virginia Tech's going to give us our best shot, and Wake might be one of the funkiest opponents. And man, watch some Cal football. JKS is a legit quarterback. You're going to be
Oh yeah.
hearing about him in about 3 years in some draft comp. But JKS is a very, very, very good quarterback. You're going to start hearing about him in about 2 to 3 years in draft comps because I think he has a chance to become very, very good. He's given a lot of teams a lot of issues. This bye week, I'm going to be watching my Citadel Bulldogs take on Valdosta State, as I mentioned before. The Citadel is one of probably the most difficult places to achieve sustained success in football. Obviously, the admission requirements are very stringent. The lifestyle is not what my brother had a chance to experience at a couple different places. It's certainly not Howard. It's certainly
To
not
be, to be fair,
Delaware.
Howard was a good educational school. You had to have a good SAT and a good GPA to get in there. But we although
Y'all had
I
a
would
social life.
we had a social life. We have a social life, but I will say, I would say Howard is so difficult because most people, when they say that they went to Howard, they didn't say they graduated from Howard. So there's
Right.
there's a lot of Howard people that went to Howard. There's not the famous people that you hear about, like Anthony Anderson, some other people that we won't mention on this podcast. They attended Howard University, like myself. They didn't graduate from Howard
If
University.
you want the key to New York City, attend
Right.
Howard. Don't
Right.
graduate.
Like Nick Cannon, he came back, he graduated. Anthony Anderson, I think he came back. He was actually one of the people that spoke my freshman year.
Yeah.
Those people they did come back and eventually finish. So
I will say this, the Howard cult and the Citadel cult are similar.
yeah, oh yeah.
Like it, but the Citadel plays Valdosta State. This is a game that I could very well see being a SoCon game soon.
Hmm.
I Valdosta State is kind of like a North Dakota State of Division Two.
It's so every time you watch it, especially when you go later into the end of the season, you have the D2 championships. Valdosta State and Ferris State are usually always playing each other, whether it's the championship, a semifinal. And those are like two programs that if people don't know about, Ferris State and Valdosta, I highly recommend touch up on it and do some history. So it's
Yes.
cool, like you're saying, the Citadel this year is not shying away, although people may say, well, it's a Division two school. They're not shying away from competent and storied programs. You know, you have Valdosta State, they played North Dakota State at the beginning of the year. Like it's very cool seeing Citadel take on this type of schedule this year.
Valdosta State was a little bit of football history. They were at the really ground floor of a lot of the modern concepts in the passing game you see today. You know, a lot of the air raid guys spent time at Valdosta. A lot of the crew that was at BYU, Jerry Glanville at various points was at Valdosta State.
Hmm.
Extremely well coached football. I mean, just like in obviously South Georgia, they're crazy about football. You know, they're basically right on the border of Florida if you don't know where Valdosta is. So it's they play a ton of good football out there. Like Ferris State, Valdosta. Currently, my favorite D2 team to watch right now is Harding out in
Hmm.
Arkansas.
Oh yeah.
The Twitter account, the last of the fullbacks, tweets out a ton of Valdosta because Harding because Harding still runs Flexbone.
Like
And
Civil's gonna have to get them on the schedule. It'll just be a battle of willpower right there.
oh my God, I it would be if we still ran it, I would love it because they run some of the most diabolical midline option concepts. Like if you fire up College Football 26 and you're like, what the heck is that midline play
Yeah,
in the Army playbook?
you'll find. Yeah.
Harding has turned that into an art.
So what do you kind of see from obviously Citadel's season so far, and kind of what do you expect this game to kind of turn out? And then with this, they'll kind of, go back into conference play with the exception of another big game coming up. But like, what do you kind of see? What does this game mean in term for Citadel this season?
In terms of the Citadel, I think this is a chance for us to get a really a really solid win against a quality opponent. It's not like we're scheduling, you know, the underwater basket weaving technical college. Like this is a legit school. This is a chance. This is a game we have a chance to win and should boost our confidence heading into the rest of the Southern Conference schedule. I I love our head coach right now, Maurice Drayton, a ton of NFL and college experience, obviously a Citadel grad, the first black coach in our school's history, and
Hmm.
he's doing a great job with the guys, like really doing a good job ingraining himself with the rest of the military college. Like, you know, once we start winning some more football games, I think that's going to be a really, really special spot. He's in year three right now. He's improved his win total from year one to year two, has a chance to improve it in year three. And it's one of the last spots, I think, where you have a chance to really build a legit program. You
Hmm.
know, right now, I think in at the FBS level and even at some parts of the FCS level, you're kind of building year to year rosters, almost like you would in the NFL, where fortunes can change so much. But the Citadel is obviously a place where if you've gotten past the first year and you've gotten past having your head shaved, you've gotten past the yes sirs and no sirs, like at
Walking in
that
the
point, you're
gutters, all
over
that stuff. Yeah.
invested.
Yeah. Yeah. You've come too far now.
Like if you've gotten past that point, you might as well just finish out the 4 years because
Yeah.
it's an awesome degree to have. It's a great ring to have, as I tend to as I tend to bring up. But
It I was gonna say, like, you guys, VMI, and then at the FCS level, I would say like the Ivies. It's in terms of the transfer portal and what it means for players. I think it's so important that if guys do the 4 years fully,
mhm,
they have successful careers, they play well. You see a lot now, especially in the transfer portal with the Ivies and guys from still VMI. Once they graduate, they have a lot of options because teams know that, hey, this guy, I don't have to worry about him being an issue on campus. I don't have
right.
to worry about, him filling his MBA program, whatever. Like he can come in, play well. He's probably really excited to get this new type of exposure. Like it's a cool kind of scenario where like Citadel is able to develop guys and keep guys for a longer time than most other FCS programs. And
Yeah.
then for the player, if you still want to chase that, new level of football, you can then go and have those options once you graduate.
Yes, and we can still take guys as grad students,
Right. Yeah, yeah,
which
exactly.
that's a great that's kind of our transfer portal as a
Yeah.
chance to like fill holes on the roster and make moves where we need to. It's a great grad degree at the Citadel. We the Citadel is one of the most interesting environments in football, period. If you have a chance to go to any of the senior military colleges, and I'm I almost don't want to include A&M and Tech in this because
No,
they have a
In-
civilian. They're
include Norwich
right.
or
They're like
SUNY
90.
Maritime.
They're 95% civilian with an
Yeah,
ROTC cadet program. But
yeah,
like, you go to a place like the Citadel or VMI or Norwich or Coast Guard or like the Maritimes, any of those schools, like it is a unique college football experience. It's akin to an Army or Navy in that experience, which I think a lot of college football fans are kind of familiar with, or an Air Force. But there, it's a bit more of a scaled down experience where you get a chance to really see what that's like and see people who really do have passion for it.
yeah.
The Southern Conference in general is great at this. It's the most energized, like smaller capacity football you'll see anywhere in the United States. People really care about the schools. People at Furman that are at those games, they even though purple makes me puke, like those guys really do care about Furman. They're there for Furman football. They want to see the traditional rivalries played. If you hate conference realignment, watch SoCon football
Come to
because
the go to the SoCon. Yeah.
you go to the SoCon, you'll see teams that have been playing each other yearly since the 1910s play each other, and it was an awesome league to play in because we had 9 teams. It was 9 teams. All 9 played each other. We didn't have a year off from anyone, so you had the same opponents year in and year out. You had a chance to do kind of 1 year on, 1 year off, and it's a great environment. I am really excited to see what Coach Drayton is building at the Citadel. And I wouldn't be surprised if it has a trajectory similar to what Tony Elliott's built at Virginia.
Mm.
You know, year 2, year 3, and then year 4, boom. You're having this year, this is year 3. Next year will be his first full recruiting class, having a chance to see all those kids through. There are a ton of guys that I really appreciate on that team. We have some super seniors that I played with, and they're just a bunch of really solid dudes. And I loved my time at the Citadel. As I was mentioning on TikTok earlier, I had a chance to preferred walk on at the University of Virginia. Got a scholarship offer from the Citadel, and I wouldn't have changed that for the world, even though I love UVA with all my heart. My experience at the Citadel was awesome.
Oh yeah. Well, we're gonna have to do a deep dive later on another time when we have some more time off to go talk about some of the crazy recruiting stories. Because boy, especially with you with the love triangle of Citadel, UVA, and Washington and Lee, three of the most unlikely pairings that people will ever think about. But weirdly enough, they make a lot of sense for
It,
people that do know.
right.
So you'll is if we'll get it, we'll have to do a chance to break all that down because those are some pretty funny stories
Right.
and some pretty unique ones in terms of college recruiting.
So one thing I did want to bring up that's a little bit more kind of non-football related is, the two of us, we grew up in Charlottesville. The two of us were born in Ithaca, New York, but we moved to Charlottesville before we had a chance to develop any really memories of Ithaca. So Charlottesville is our hometown. And if you have been to Charlottesville at all, you know about Bodo's Bagels. So, James, for the people, so they know next time they're in the beautiful city of Charlottesville, Virginia, the UNESCO World Heritage Site, what's your Bodo's order?
I would just say on the topic of what Deuce said for people for reference, I think it was maybe 2 weeks after I was born, like a week after Christmas. My dad our dad got the job at Virginia, and so we moved down there. So for all intents and purposes, like Deuce says, like when we like to think about, where home really is and where we like to always like come visit and go back to. Virginia and especially Charlottesville is one of those places. We did a thing in our sibling group chat of where all the places we would ever want to live, and all four of us had Virginia as absolutely. So
Yes.
that was just a little preference. Um, I would say my Bodo's bagel when I was a kid was definitely cinnamon raisin with just butter toasted.
Mm.
My fiance is gonna hate this, but I would say now if I had to go back, I would still do cinnamon raisin, but do it with a bacon, egg, and cheese.
Ooh,
And some people
okay.
in the comments or videos are going to be like, bacon and cinnamon and raisin and cheese. How does that work? Just trust me, you'll thank me later. It is all the combinations of savory and delight and gooey with cheese, and then all the sweetness of cinnamon and raisin in there. And your taste buds will thank you if you do end up if you ever get down to Bodo's and try
And if you're going to trust anyone with, by the way, not sponsored, if you're going to trust
it.
anyone with an out there combination, you should trust Bodo's Bagels.
Just trust them. They have, I think it's cool just because like for people that don't know, it's a place obviously on a college campus where people go through all wee hours of the day and week,
Mhm.
and it's there's nothing like on a Sunday morning, either post church or if you're older, post darty or drinking or whatever, like nothing like that Sunday morning getting a breakfast sandwich or Bodo's bagels hitting your mouth for the first thing that you eat that day.
If I were in Charlottesville and I were trying to make sense of what planet I was on
Go to Bodo's.
after the Florida State win,
Yeah.
say I stormed the field from the hill and I'm going to Bodo's and I need to reset myself. Everything bagel, sausage, egg, and cheese.
Okay, that's a good one.
You
That's a really
know,
good one.
this I don't know. I don't hate the bacon, egg, and cheese. I like bacon, egg, and cheese, but for whatever reason, like I do like that different
People,
combination on there.
I think people like the sausage just because every bite you're gonna get consistent like the patty. Bacon
Yes.
obviously it's a strip, so sometimes it may be leaning one side of the sandwich more. Um, for people that don't know, obviously former offensive linemen talking about food. There is a science. There have been heated debates in the locker room or cafeteria arguing about all this type of food. So for me, this is just as natural talking about inside zone or power when it comes to talking about food. Yeah, so I would say I would appreciate the people that do say sausage, like you were saying, just because of the surface area that you get within on the sandwich.
Right, it's inside zone. It's not going to hit like four verts when four verts hits well, but
Yeah,
it's inside zone. You get 3 yards of clip on
yeah.
on the sausage, egg, and
You're
cheese.
you can never go broke taking a profit with the play.
Exactly. And
Absolutely.
we've had conversations about this, but I want to put it on record.
Put it out there.
I want to have a moment of silence for Wild Wing Cafe in Charlottesville.
Before we do that, the big three of our lives in Charlottesville were Wild Wing Cafe, which was, I believe it was connected to the Amtrak station in
Yes,
Charlottesville.
just south of the downtown mall.
Just south of it. You go down this road, then the train is right there, and then inside the building is the cafe. Um, then you had Bodo's, and then the
Yep.
third place I would shout out would be Coors Brothers.
Oh, absolutely.
You get your ice cream there. Every day we live on the west side of Charlotte, west of Charlottesville. So every day when we come home from school, we would drive past I think it's one of two locations in Charlottesville. It's on the
Yep.
side of a road. I think it's next to like a motorcycle delership and like one
Yes.
building or whatever. And we'd go in there, and not every day. Our parents were better than that, but they would, especially we would hit the badgering of, can we please get some Coors Brothers? And there was nothing like, post school or whatever, or in the summer getting some Coors Brothers. So all three of those places
Well,
definitely hold a very special dear heart in our lives.
and if you grew up in a church growing household, this principle applies the same because we had the same rule on Sunday after church. If you were good in church, you got a chance to have one of the donuts.
Get it
If we
done.
were good that week in
Absolutely.
school, and if we got all
Handle
of
your
our
business.
homework
Yeah.
in, all that, and then on Friday we could get some Coors Brothers.
Get some Coors Brothers. And John's not on here to defend himself, but unfortunately, I would always be the one. John, who was probably in
Bandit.
2009, 2009 was 5 years old at the time. I was 9. We would be sitting in the back seat, and I'd look at him and be like, "Hey," I would already have finished mine by the time we got back into the car on the way home. John, who we later found out was lactose intolerant,
Right.
he's taking like, and he's like, "Can't enjoy this." And I'm just looking at him. I'm like, "Hey, you don't really want that, do you?" And he'd be like, "No," and he'd give it to me or whatever. So apologies to John on all those years taking his ice cream. Uh, it was
But seriously, moment of silence for the Wild Wing
yes,
Cafe, man.
absolutely.
Man, that place was like if obviously after a Virginia win, say we played a 3:30 kick or something like that, it was such a great place to regroup. It was where I did my first hot wing challenge.
It's
I was doing hot ones in
it
2004.
it's where when you and I were in high school and we took a recruiting visit to UVA and we did their camp. It was shout out the great Marquise Hagens took us on a recruiting trip on our
Yes,
unofficial. It took us out to lunch there. So it was always a great spot, especially for lunch or dinner. You know, you get your wings. It has all the sports memorabilia. I think it had like all of the college flags, like especially like
it
ACC, like all
did.
the different
Yes.
college flags in there. It really did feel like your homey, sports bar with the sit down, and it was a very, very cool experience there.
It was a wonderful experience, and I was doing like hot ones way before then. Fine, the one Western.
I was not a part of that. That would be like, hey, DC, you try this, and Deuce would be like, yeah, sure, no problem.
I think having lived in Western New York at 1 years old, a year longer than you did, I think that's where I got that from. I think I got the hot wing from having spent just a little bit more time in
Yeah,
Ithaca.
yeah.
But I mean, Charlottesville was just the best place to grow up. If you have a chance to go, please do go for a Virginia football game. Like, I try to get up whenever I can. It's just one of the best places on earth, honestly.
We went. Shout out my former team at the University of Delaware, Ben Trent, who played at the University of Virginia and then transferred to Delaware during COVID. Because we were not playing in the fall season, he took me and him. We drove down to go see UVA play during one of the wacky ACC COVID games where there was maybe
Yep.
30 people in the stands. And we drove down. We went to one of the games. It was cool. I hadn't been back there since high school, but it was cool. Going back to town and seeing all that. And Delaware actually gets to play UVA. I want to say next year.
I think they
Um,
do. Yes.
I believe it is 2 weeks after my wedding is planned, so hopefully by the time we can get back to the honeymoon, I can say, and hey, let's swing back down to Charlottesville and go watch a football game. So, but yeah, I'm very excited. Obviously now that we're not playing anymore, we get to go experience more different college games and go travel the country and then go back to the places that we always enjoyed and always had a good time at.
It's a funny thing growing up as a coach's kid. We spent our childhood very much embedded in a football program. And that may change year to year, but it's very much in one football program. You're going to the same games, you got the same environment. The new episode of Adventures of Cabman is coming on the same Saturday. And
Oh
then
yeah,
we went on to play in college, and it was very much the same thing for 4 years, or you're embedded in that program, or if, say in the sake of James, who played at a couple different places, like you're
but
still embedded.
the routine is constant, and you become a creature of habit, especially in college football.
Right. And when you graduate, it's like, hey, I've got
Now
a
what?
free
Yeah,
Saturday.
yeah,
For me, I live just south of Tampa. Let's go to USF. I'd
yeah,
love to see what FIU has going on right now. And like for
yeah.
you, it's based out of Indianapolis. It's a very similar situation. Like, hey,
Oh
let's see
yeah,
what's going on.
yeah. Last year I was able. It was last year was the first year I had not played football in over, 12 years or something like that, and
Right.
was able to go to a Delaware game, went to a New Haven game, went to an Oregon game twice, went to all these Indiana State games. So it's fun now getting to be on this side of the stands in the field and being a fan and getting just to enjoy this experience and
Right.
getting to watch and still the list of people is getting shorter, but the watch the some of the people we used to play with be on the field and get to enjoy themselves and have fun. That's always really fun to see, especially us having a younger brother in his senior year, getting to, enjoy his last year and getting to see that through him.
Absolutely. I mean, and we were both lucky enough. I actually had a work trip near Louisville earlier on this year. And, for John, who plays in the Missouri Valley, they're not playing any Florida teams, really. And
Hmm.
so it was a perfect time up. I'm gonna put a picture up of us right here, but we were able to go see John play at the University of Indiana in Bloomington, and obviously like
Indiana
those
University.
those FBS FCS games are probably something we'll have to do a full episode on this, on that experience, because I think most people don't know what that game is like from the FCS side. Even if you lose, it's an incredible experience. Like, James, you had a chance to play some awesome FBS teams out of the Northeast and Midwest. I had a chance to play some really awesome teams out of the ACC and SEC teams. And, if you just take it for what it's worth, you never know. You might pull one out.
Go, yeah. He got to enjoy that experience, and it was great having all this, half of our family there with our mom and you and my fiance being down there with us, and a bunch of his friends were able to come down from school and from his internships and all that stuff to see him play, that's a really cool moment. And obviously, you don't take those moments for granted, and then when you're playing
No.
in it, like you're gonna remember those moments forever. Um,
Yeah.
so shout out to John. Obviously big game like we talked about earlier with South Dakota this week, and then they have North Dakota State. They have South Dakota State. They have some tough games going on ahead of them, but I'm confident in the Sycamores this year.
Absolutely sick 'em.
Yep, there you go.
But one thing I want to leave on, James, what is your favorite UVA football game?
Ooh. So the thing is, for people that I don't know, I don't think you've mentioned it, but we obviously had a curfew for a lot of those games,
Right.
especially if they were an away game. So away games, we never really. I don't think we ever traveled an away game unless it was a bowl game.
We went to a game. We went to NC State one year and we went to Clemson the other.
Okay, like there was very so obviously when it was a away game, more likely than not, we were at home kind of watching on the TV or whatever, and then for the UVA games, if it was one of those night games, depending on the game, we sometimes had to go earlier, so that wasn't that exciting. But I
Right.
think the most I think probably the most exciting game for me was 2005, and I think it's just because it's so timely now with what we happened. But when UVA beat Florida State, I think that was a really cool moment just because yeah, I think that was an ABC game, nationally
It
televised
was,
game,
yeah.
just this one, and like there was so much hype and attention around UVA from whenever in the moment, and obviously just how special the 2005 season was. With you go down the laundry list of players who are NFL and UVA legends, like
Yeah.
Heath Miller, Matt Schaub, Elton Brown, all these guys who have just done incredible for themselves, and seeing all their work pay off in a game like that against a really tough team. And then I was watching. You ever watch some of those videos and like UVA versus like North Carolina State, and you just look and you see like, oh, that's Mario Williams, or
Right.
it's any of these other games that we had, or like obviously my favorite player we do talked about last week was like Michael Vick, but like you realize like now looking back in some of those games, how much talent was on those fields, and I'm blanking on some of the names from the Florida State team then, but like though that game was such a very thrilling game and a very exciting game as a kid to go enjoy.
Absolutely. I mean, it for me, it would go up a year, 2004 against Clemson.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
That
that's
that
a good
was that was a great game. I mean, Clemson obviously now is even more prominent than it was in 2004, but Clemson was very much still Clemson at that point in time. And that you want a good name of a guy we played against. The starting quarterback for that was Charlie Whitehurst.
Oh yeah.
And it was such an incredible game. It was very much like a coming out party for that offensive line. That was the year that Elton Brown, who's now coaching at Norfolk State, won the Jacobs Blocking Trophy. You had guys like Alvin Pierman and Wally Lundy running behind him, and like when you've got a offensive line combo like that with DeBrickashaw, Elton Brown, like Ian Cunningham, Brad Butler, like the whole gang, and then you pair them up with backs like Alvin Pierman and Wally Lundy. That's a hard team to beat.
Very hard team to beat. Oh,
Sentimentally, I also want to give a shout out. This is probably for every UVA fan, but 2019 against Virginia Tech.
huge
That
one. Oh, I wanted to plug in real quick. So the three names I remember: Kyler Hall, Broderick Bunkley, and Willie
Mhm.
Reed, captains of that 2005 Florida State team. But yes, 2019 UVA versus Virginia Tech, which my guy Ben was a part of. That was his senior year game. He would never stop talking about how exciting that game was. And I don't blame him because that was
Yeah.
an incredible game to watch on TV.
And FCS schedules being a little bit shorter, we were actually all there
Done. Thanks. Yeah,
together.
Thanksgiving weekend. If you're not in the playoffs, you're done and you're watching those games.
and we were with our dad in Indianapolis, and had a chance for all four of us siblings to be together with our dad and watching that game. And it was like a weight having been lifted off of my shoulders, at least. And all of us being so excited, and all of us being very, very much fans of University of Virginia football. I mean, it was one of those first times where I was like, oh, this is what it's like to really be a fan
Yeah,
of a college football team, because we were still very much in it in terms of
locked
like
in.
being college football players and stuff like that. And we got a chance to kind of remove ourselves from it and just enjoy that. And I 2025 against Florida State's climbing up that list, brother.
Up there. Yeah, it's definitely one of those exciting games, and definitely something that this team, these two games here are just something that the football team at UVA is going to have to, lean on, not get too caught up in it, but again, be able to match those moments week after week, and obviously they'll have a big one at the end of the year that if they win that one, despite what the records say, it will definitely be up there.
Virginia Tech will give us their very best shot. Obviously, any interim coach is going to want to coach their tail off. I mean, you watch what UCLA just did against Penn State. I'm sure Neuheisel's going to get some calls, whether it's from UCLA or from someone else. Like, I wouldn't doubt that he ends up in some cycles, whether it's at UCLA or someone else, based on the job he did. You know, they're trying, as like any coaches, they're on an interim basis. They're trying to earn their next
Job.
opportunity. And so
Oh
doing it
yeah,
against Virginia, especially this Virginia team, would be big for them. But like I was saying earlier, this Virginia team doesn't look like they're the type that's going to let off the gas anytime soon.
nope,
But
nope.
leaving off of that, James, I didn't do this last time, and shame on me for not doing it. But where can the wonderful people find more James Prince?
Yeah, so I'm on pretty much every social media now. Twitter, follow me at James Prince or underscore James Prince underscore. Instagram, same handle. TikTok, James Prince underscore. Instagram, I also do now. I've been for about a year now. I've been doing offensive line training, work with a lot of college guys, NFL, high school guys, and hopefully getting on that way to work with some NFL guys here in the Indianapolis area. But do a lot of TikToks, especially football is something that I'm really passionate about, and Deuce has done a great job talking about the offensive line play with some of his videos here is going on. But like, do a lot of breakdowns on YouTube as well that I've uploaded in the past. Going to be trying to upload here soon. So yeah, anywhere that you can find me on social media, I'm on there.
Absolutely. I do. I tend to be a little bit more 30,000 feet on a lot of University of Virginia football content. If you want very much like, whether if you're in the Indianapolis area and you want some offensive line training, hit James up. And if you want some breakdowns of specifically offensive line play, look in the description. James's stuff will be all in there. He's got some awesome stuff. I mean, James was not only a teammate of mine, not only a brother and literal brother of mine, but is a hell of an offensive lineman and had a great career, and is really, really a great teacher in the way things should be done on the offensive line. So please check James's stuff out and hit him up if you're interested, because he really is awesome at what he does.
Kind of done with that, you man.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
thank you. I mean, we'll have to do a full episode on some of our hijinks at Step and Act together when we played together. But man, thank you so much for coming on again. I appreciate your
Of course.
time. And go Who's. Thankfully, we get to kick back in this bye week, and we will kick it back off next week when we're going up against a very, very interesting and fun Washington State football team. So, James,
Go.
anything to leave off on?
No, man, just like Deuce was saying earlier, man, go out, support your local school, whether it's FCS, D2, D3. Hell, if you got some JUCOs around your area, go watch those guys. You never know who's going to be playing on those games, and you may find themselves on next year or the year after on a Sunday or a Saturday game that you're on national TV.
Absolutely, man. And go Who's. Have a great night. Thank you all so much for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Everyone have a great night, and wahoo wah, baby.
See ya.